Guys, so long time no see. I have had a long month. We had gone to Disneyland at the end of July and ended up catching the thing while there, which we're all vaccinated, except for my son because he's little and my wife was worried. So, we ended up catching that, which I kind of assumed we'd get sick because if you've ever been to Disneyland, there is no social distancing. And they, at the time, we're in 2022, so, masks were only inside, and, people hardly wore them outside or in lines, really, even though you're in there like cattle. So, we were trying to wear our masks and stuff like that, but he's too young for it. And so, of course, we ended up with the thing. Um, Thankfully, we didn't get it until, or at least didn't show any signs of it until like the day before we left. So it was before we had to drive or anything. And I was still feeling fine on the drive home, thankfully. So, but then the next week we were all kind of dead for a while, and I still have a cough myself. It's been 3+ weeks now. Um, but we had that, and then while we were getting over the COVID, my cat, who was 15, she started limping, and then eventually, unfortunately, she passed. Um, so it's been a long month. So finally back and had some free time. I thought we'd just look at a couple things here. I have a couple things that I picked up while we were on the Disneyland trip. Um, and then I have just the books I've been reading recently. I honestly haven't been to the comic book store for probably over a month at this point. I'm planning to go, not this week, because we have a trip upcoming, and I don't want to be spending money, but probably the week after that, when I have some more funds, because I'm sure, I don't know what's in my saver at this point, but after a month plus, I'm sure it'll be some, a more hefty price tag, unfortunately. But anyways, let's take a look at the couple things that I have from the Disneyland trip. I don't have everything, because a couple things I did take to work. So one thing I found just at the local Target by the house we were at was this Keith Lee Ultimates WWE action figure, which I had told myself to pick up if I ran across it. I think I'd seen it like once at Target and then never again. So when I saw him at the Anaheim Target, I think the first day I passed it up, and then the second day when I went back, he was still there, so I picked it up. And then you'll notice he does have his beard and goatee. I actually just put that on with a Sharpie. From far away, like here, it looks great. If you look too close, it's probably a little shinier than it would be if it was the, whatever paint they use for the hair color. But he didn't really look like Keith Lee, or at least current Keith Lee, without the goatee and the little thin beard that he has rocking right now. So, I colored that in, and like I said, from here, it looks great. I don't think I have any paints left, and I was trying to be extra careful with the Sharpie, so that was interesting. Sorry, I had to pause there while my neighbors, who I think are drug dealers, got out of their car. I don't know the neighbors across the street directly, or it's like they won't be there for days at a time, and then you'll see like one out of the two, like adults, and then you won't won't see the other one for like a week, and then you'll see some random person dropping off their kids, and then they'll be gone for a week. It's really weird. I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily trust them with anything. But anyways, the other item I picked up and I have on hand is this Moon Knight pop. I've been trying to get away from the pops, but when I see one that I really like, I'll pick it up still. So this is, Moon Knight doing a super karate kick or something. They had from the TV show, which I've watched the first couple episodes, but I don't have too much free time. I watched a couple when I was sick with the COVID. So, they had the classic Moon Knight, they had Mr. Knight, Khonshu, which would look really cool, and then, his female sidekick and the main villain of the show, which I don't honestly know why anybody would need a pop of those two, but I guess maybe some people are just total completists. So I picked this up in, not on Avengers Campus, because Disneyland now in California Adventure has Avengers Campus, which, if you haven't been, I will say for me, it was very much a letdown. It's a very sparse area. There's an entrance for the Spider-Man ride and the Tower of Terror, which is now the Guardians of the Galaxy ride. And, they tout the fact that there's a Spider-Man bot store, which is really just so you can buy some things that you interact with on the ride. And then they tout the the Guardians of the Galaxy store as being the big Marvel store, and it's honestly your local comic book store, if it's worth its salt, is much more entertaining and has more products for you to buy, so it was kind of a letdown. They did have a big yet obviously thrown together store over by the Monsters Inc. ride. It was something we actually walked past 2 or 3 times, not even knowing that it was a store or that anything was in there. I don't know what used to be in there, but it was basically, how you walk into some of those stores around Halloween where like the walls just have been blacked out, and then they just have products like within, but on the walls it's just black, like they've just put up black tarps. It was like that, and they had a few things in there. I actually spent more getting my son and daughter outfits than on the products they had, because it was mostly like not even Disney store quality, but like regular, not even Target aisle. It was just very either junky toys that you could find at any store, or it would be like collector's stuff that was like overpriced. So they had some of the PVC statues, which those are nice, and I do appreciate that those are like $45, which is not bad for the size they are. But they had like these mini figures, which I think were plastic, that were like $85 for like a little set of like guys that were literally like an inch tall, which was like, it's cute that you have a whole bunch of Avengers that look like little giant-headed babies, but they're not $85 worth. So I picked up that Moon Knight here, but it wasn't that exciting. So anyways, I picked up that Moon Knight, which has disappeared from your screen because the phone rang. And the only other thing I got at the park was a couple pins, because I do like the pins, but they didn't have anything that was exceptional, I thought, this go around. And a Darth Vader pop, because they had basically they had Disney exclusive merchandise for the 40th or Star Wars, probably 45th, because I'm 40 and it came out before I was alive. So, one of the anniversaries for Star Wars, they had a whole bunch of products, and some of them they had was the pops based on the original Ralph McQuarrie paintings. So, if you don't know the Ralph McQuarrie original concept art, it is beautiful stuff. I highly recommend looking for those books or products based on them. And they had a few pops based on that artwork. So I got a Darth Vader pop based on his original artwork, which is kind of a Darth Vader looks more like a samurai. Basically, he's got like a samurai helmet, more or less, and a little bit more of an outward air breathing. So I picked that up and immediately saw it on Facebook in the Disney Store website like a few days later, which I felt kind of chipped on because they had all this, it says Disney exclusive on it, and then, they neglect to tell you that you could just buy it off their website. But anyways, more or less a fun trip. It was just, with the timing of everybody getting sick directly afterwards, and then my cat passing away. It was like 3 weeks ago, and it feels like it was 8 months ago. Like any happy vibes from that trip were quickly diminished by, life afterwards. So, anyways, next thing I thought we'd look at is just what I've been reading recently, and these comics all come from a collection that I bought off of basically one of my wife's co-workers. Her husband was cleaning out his storage unit because they had just, I think they had just adopted a couple kids, and he was making room for the kids. So he was putting all of his comics into storage, and through the wives, they kind of got us hooked up, and he gave me a list of what he had in his collection, and he, knowing that I was an actual, full-time collecting here, he offered to sell them to me, and I bought probably like 3/4 of what he had, and he actually sold them to me at cover price, which is insane. But he had a load of late 70s, early 80s Marvel books, and there's a few that I probably honestly should have picked up. At the time, I had a word processor, just 70 some odd page list of all the comics in my collection. But, as is the way sometimes, I would have things listed where in reality I had like maybe a facsimile copy or a re-release copy and not the original. So there were a couple things I probably passed on that are, good for him, because he would have had me pay him 30 cents or 25 cents, and it's worth more. So I bought a good amount of his stuff, and some of that was these Marvel Super Action comics from, this one happens to be from 1979. I'll move this up here. So these are like my sweet spot, honestly, for comic books. I love the Marvel Comics group trade dressing and the pictures of the character in the corner. This one happens to be 40 cents, and it's from 1979. And what these are, they're basically reprints from the late 70s, early 80s of Avengers books from like 10 years prior. Some of them maybe 15 years prior. So, it's that period of time when Roy Thomas was writing, and Stan Lee was the editor-in-chief, and a lot of these are the artworks by Sal Buscema. but these are like the classic, big ticket item Avenger books if you had the originals. So, this is a reprint, a 1980 reprint of, I think, Avengers like 15 or 16, the first appearance of the Vision. And I mean, apart from the fact that it says Marvel Super Action, this is basically what that comic would look like on the stands, with its lower cover price, of course. But these are great. They're on the newsprint like you would expect. They have all the late 70s, early 80s ads for Star Wars action figures and things like that. One of them I read last night had an ad for Empire Strikes Back. I think they were like candy heads, and it has Darth Vader, and then has a Yoda that looks like almost like a cross between Kermit and that little creature next to Jabba the Hutt. It's like they didn't know what Yoda really looked like. But these are great. It's that 60s style where they're describing everything to you, and everybody is monologuing their every thought out loud. But and all the stories are mostly one-shot condensed craziness. But this to me is comics. As many more recent pickups and more modern stuff I have, this is what I like to see. Is the current writing much better? Yeah. Are the stories much more adult? Yes. But there's something about these, this is what comics started out as for me. This kind of era. So, these are just super fun for me to pick up. Like, if I was going to get rid of my collection tomorrow, I'd keep anything with this kind of trade dress. And all the modern stuff would be, most of it would be jettisoned, but like anything like this, I don't care if it's the D-list character, I'd probably keep it. So here you have the marriage of Yellow Jacket, which is Hank Pym, and Wasp, Janet Van Dyne. And this is like when they didn't, I think this is the issue also where they find out that this is actually Hank and not just some different guy. Let's see, we have the Avengers with Doctor Strange. This is when he had the face mask that he wore for a little while, versus a Frost Giant and Surtur, Fire Giant. We have Marvel Super Action where the Panther is fighting alone on Wakanda. I think there was like if I remember right, it was all about him going back to Wakanda and Mabuku's causing some issues. We have the beginning of the Goliath era. So this, and honestly, I mean, some of this stuff I just forget. And I don't know who that is. I can't tell who that is. It's not Janet because she's right down there. I don't know who that is. But anyways, I had totally, if I knew this and forgot, probably, but I had totally forgotten that at one point Hawkeye took on the role of Goliath while Hank Pym was running around as Yellow Jacket. So for quite a few issues, and they're still going as I'm reading right now, there's no Hawkeye. It is Goliath, and it's Hawkeye running around with shape-changing powers. And there's a couple issues where he's kind of getting the hang of it, and he screws up and gets too big too fast, and falls over and stuff like that. But I had totally forgot that entire part of Avengers history. And obviously these are less expensive copies than what you would be paying for the original Avengers issues. Nowadays issue is 42 years old at this point. So, but the colors are vivid, and it's great being able to read these and not feeling like you're, oh no, I'm gonna touch the first issue with Vision in it. I'm gonna touch it and ruin it. I can pick these up and read them. Here they have the swordsman. Who I forgot was Hawkeye's. Was it Hawkeye's? No, it was Hawkeye's brother. Was another guy. This has the death of Hawkeye's brother, and them finding out that he's Clint Barton, stuff like that. There's also some backup stories about Hulk from the British magazines. Those are interesting just because of like the sensibility is very dark. It's like Hulk in the countryside and Hulk fighting bears. But you'll see like some well-known British artists' names pop up. Like I think one of them had Steve Dillon, I believe, was on one of them doing the art, and probably the first stuff that he ever had in print, at least in the U.S. So I haven't read those backups because by the time you read an old style Avengers like this, where everybody's monologuing, you've spent 30 minutes. But it is interesting just to flip through and kind of see. I love this era of Iron Man where he's the classic shellhead. And, hey, Thor hasn't changed much over the course of 40 years, right? We have the return of Ultron. I believe in this one he's Ultron. He either calls him... Sorry. He either calls himself Ultron 2 or Ultron 6. He's got like a tank tread lower half, almost like Professor X's floating animated series chair. It's interesting to see, and it's amazing how quickly these big baddies come back, and then they're dealt with in like 2 issues. Like this one, I believe it might have been a 3-parter. This was the last part where, Vision gets knocked out and or runs out of energy, basically. And the Avengers need his help to, there you go, need his help to fight off Ultron. But, back then, 2 or 3 issue arc was like, what? Like, we've packed so much verbiage in these issues. Why do you need 2 issues? But I mean, at the end of this issue, Ultron's destroyed again. So it's like, oh my god, Ultron's back. Let's fight Ultron. We killed Ultron. That's how quickly these things happened back then. This was a story with Kang. This was a 3-issue story also, which I was surprised by. 2 in a row. What? This must have been Roy Thomas really pushing the boundaries. So this one we have Kang attacking the Avengers, and then the next issue is Kang versus the Grandmaster, and they're playing a game where basically they've picked a superhero team to fight on their behalf. So it's the Avengers versus the Squadron Sinister, which eventually was the Squadron Supreme. I think this would have been their first introduction, if I'm not mistaken. And of course, the Squadron Sinister originally was, they're all allegories for DC Comics heroes. So Hyperion was Superman, Dr. Spectrum was Green Lantern because he has the crystal that's giving him powers. The Wizard is, of course, the Flash, and Nighthawk is, of course, a funny-looking Batman. And then the final issue in this arc was this final battle, where it was basically 3 modern-day Avengers, being Yellow Jacket, Black Panther, and Vision, versus the 1940s Shield, you'll notice the lines are going out because this is his more, I guess you would say shield shaped or V shaped shield instead of the cylinder, and you just get a hint of that in this. You know, they're kind of blocking it with Black Panther's body and this, you know, visual bang. But you know, if you're really paying attention, it's like, oh, you know, that's all the Defenders. And then a couple issues I read last night, we have the Avengers and Captain Marvel versus Scorpio, who was running basically a supervillain group of astrological symbols, which were all quite hilarious. If you love your astrological symbols, I highly suggest taking a look at the Society of Astrological Supervillains. They had one for each of us. Aries was the leader. For some reason, it was not. No, it's not like Hulk Aries or not Hulk. Sorry, Thor. And you know, for a while they had Thor and Hercules had Aries, and he was on the Avengers. It's not him. It's just some doofus with a mask. But it's funny because they have, you know, they have a doofus in the mask for each of the symbols, and some of them I couldn't even tell who it was supposed to be. Like, I'm a Capricorn, I couldn't tell who the hell my supervillain was. And then last night I also read issue 34 here, which is the Black Panther versus the Sons of the Serpent, who are like a racial, almost like a Ku Klux Klan villain. So Black Panther wants to take them on alone. And I like how Yellow Jacket looks really torn up here, that he can't help out. You know, Vision doesn't care because he's an android. Wasp looks like she's fainting. And Goliath here, it looks like he's gotten his hair done. So the next issue I have is basically finishing up this storyline, and then oh, there's a bug in there. Look at that. Look at this. There's a pincher bug in the top there. I don't know when he got in there, but I hope he's taking him out in a second. But anyways, the next issue is the end of this storyline, and then I think that's it for the Marvel Super Actions that were in that box that I was going through. There's also some, you know, reprints from this era of Spider-Man, early Spider-Mans, which have a different name other than Marvel Super Action. And then there are a few issues of Jungle Action, which was the Black Panther standalone comic. So hopefully I'll be going through those in the next few days. I find it so much easier to pick these things up and read them because it's self-contained, and you don't feel like you're missing anything. Whereas if I was to pick up, you know, part one of a story from a modern day comic, you know, if I don't read part two anytime soon, I might just totally forget what the hell's going on. So, but anyways, guys, I hope you've had a better August than I have, as this has been a trying month here of loads of crap going on, and I hope to see you guys on a more regular basis. Next week I am out, but you know, the following week when I go to the comic book store, I'll be sure to put those aside so we can take a look and see what I racked up over the course of a month plus. So I hope you guys have a good one, and I'll see you next time.